The wind is rising and the rain is still drizzling, and they have long stretches of open water to cross. These are the times canoeists remember most vividly and with satisfaction when they're back home. Traveling through remote country by primitive means. They're not conquering nature. For a brief moment, they're part of it.
They're heading now for Best Island and Wendell's place. Tonight, they'll camp by his cabins. They, too, have been touched by his legend. When Wendell was alive, the Outward Bounders always dropped by. So a long tradition continues. Stanley Slipperjack built his own house here out of local spruce trees he cut during the winter.
Hello, John.
We've come to use your radio.
Yeah, okay. Whitewater 2 calling Warrior Lake.
We were getting a little anxious about the weather and our planned flight into Wabakimi Wilderness Park.
This is Wally Lake here, over.
Thanks, Stan. Yeah, Don, it's John Foster. How do you copy, over?
We copy you 5 by 5.
We're wondering about the weather, if you've got any weather for tomorrow. Right now, we've got about 5 miles visibility, but it's drizzling rain and the fog is right down on the trees. How's it look for tomorrow, over?
The weather office says that we should see the sun tomorrow for most of the day, and it shouldn't be too windy, so we're hopeful for tomorrow.
That sounds great. Do you have any information about the Ministry of Natural Resources Turbo Beaver, which was supposed to come in today or tomorrow, over?
I was informed yesterday that the beaver would be in tomorrow, and they should probably be in there sometime in the morning. I'd suspect around 9 to 10 o'clock.
In the Turbo Beaver, we were heading now for Wabakimi, one of Ontario's newest parks. Once again, we flew over the Agoki River and across the wonderful mosaic of lake and forest and stream. But here, some of the forest looks different. An ancient force of renewal has swept through, fire. And among the blackened trees, the land is showing its bones. You look at it and wonder how anything could ever grow again on such bare rock. That was the question that brought us here.
Flying in with us was a canoeist who did much to help create Wabakimi Park and who cares passionately about this North Country. Bruce Heyer is a biologist, and his favorite subject is fire and the role it plays in a boreal forest. Here's the wonder of this country: bare rock, a scrap of moss, and a tiny, sturdy young tree. Trees grow old and die, but nature has designed them to burn. They're full of pitch and highly inflammable. When they burn, their nutrients are released, return to the earth, and new life begins. To many, this scene is one of utter devastation, not to Bruce Hire. He sees only the bright greens of a new forest.
7 years ago, when this big fire happened, the Wabakimi Fire is what it was called, there was shock and horror amongst some members of the ministry and some members of the public who wanted to get this fire out as soon as possible, and I was one of the people that wasn't upset at all. We are never going to harvest timber in this wilderness park anyway, and so there were no timber values to protect, and so it was real important that it burn. If this area didn't burn, we wouldn't get any regeneration, and gradually it would get over mature, it would start to fall down, and things rot so slowly in this country that it would take 50 or 60 or 70 years before those nutrients went back into the soil. And the nutrients are real scarce here to begin with. There almost are no nutrients in this country, and what little bit there are locked up in these trees. And so unless those nutrients are recycled, they're not available for new growth. There's some other nice effects from the fire as well. The soil here is extremely acidic, and that acid, when the fire occurs, the ashes are very alkaline, and they neutralize that acidity and allow the young plants to grow. It's just like you'd put lime in your garden. The fire limes the soil here. It also unlocks a lot of seeds. These are jack pines right here, and without heat reaching, I think it's 140 degrees Fahrenheit, these seeds won't open. And a few hours after the fire has gone through and cooled down, these seeds open and they drop their seeds, and we get beautiful jack pine regeneration. The sites here in Wabakimi Park, for the most part, are very, very shallow soils, or in some cases no soils at all, on bedrock. There are almost no nutrients, there's virtually no soil, and I can show you similar sites outside the park that have been logged 8 years ago that have not regrown yet, and I doubt they'll regrow for many, many decades. And yet, a few years after burning here in the park, we have beautiful regeneration. A few hours after a fire, things are already germinating, and there are special plants that are made to capture and hold the little bit of soil that is here immediately. The most well-known one is fireweed, but there are many, many other plants that grow immediately after a fire. The poplars sprout from their roots and start to grow almost immediately. The willows here start to grow immediately. They not only hold the soil and start to pave the way for the new forest, but they also provide wonderful wildlife habitat and food for things like moose. When you log an area off on sites like this, you build up tremendous heat in the summertime because there's too much sun and the young plants can't grow. But when you leave all these dead standing trees here, they act as a natural nursery for the young trees. They stop the wind, they stop excessive sun, they give it just enough sun. It's very similar to the lattice work or the netting that you use over shade tobacco or certain nursery plants. One reason I love nature is it's so diverse. And when I look at a forest, I don't see something that's static. I see something that's dynamic, that's always changing. And that change is as exciting as the forest itself.
The lure of good fishing in a wild setting draws people to northern Ontario from across this continent. In these boats are 4 friends from Lancaster, Ohio. They dream about these trips from one year to the next. They've come here looking for a cabin, a couple of boats, and a peaceful break in their daily lives. Providing this is what fuels the tourist economy of the North. Outfitters like Don Plumridge have to build the kind of lodge that will cater to a variety of people, but still retain a wilderness flavor.
We had to pick a spot that we could build a large enough establishment without being cramped in a tight area, and this was it. There's quite a bit of beach here and good soil behind, good level ground. It's a nice spot, southern exposure. It's quite pretty here.
So what's your purpose here? What are you hoping to achieve here with all these nice new cabins?
Well, we've built a lodge, and we're working on the American Plan facilities, dining room, and we hope to be able to get families in here for fishing, hunting and fishing, mostly for fishing.
But most of your clientele right now Americans?
I'd say about 90% of the people are from the United States.
I wonder why that is.
I think they've lost what they had, and they wanted to come up here and enjoy the wilderness.
There will be 3 more log cabins going up here this winter. Don's asked Stanley to build them, so the land must be cleared. This summer it's been a happy family affair, with Jean's daughters, Debbie and Marilyn, up here on holiday, and everyone pitching in. Even Debbie's young daughter, Aisha. Both Debbie and Marilyn spent many of their growing up years here on Whitewater. For Marilyn, it is not only home, but a place of creative inspiration for her paintings.
I did it in paint and I sent it away.
Well, the other one you sent was in paint. Is it easier to do in paint than in the pencil crayon?
Nope.
This one's beautiful. They're very good. Of course,
I like that one.
I like this one too, the owl. And
Me too. Looks like I'll have to do it again because it got wet.
Marilyn was never formally trained. Everything she draws and paints comes out of her imagination and from the wild creatures she sees in the world around her.
To get colors.
Oh, I see. It says four basic colors. What are the basic ones?
I have white, blue, red, and yellow.
And you mix them up and get everything else?
And I make brown.
She says she doesn't know how this image came into her mind, but to me it's a spirit. Perhaps the spirit of Whitewater Lake.
These are the images from Whitewater Lake and the Wabakimi Wilderness that we remember best. The wonder of the old boreal forest. The yellow and gold brushstrokes of September in the tamaracks and poplars. The soft sand beaches where Indian people were camped perhaps 7,000 years ago. And always the wind and the wild skies, the sudden whitecaps on open water. The sunrise that appears bright red and then disappears as storm clouds sweep in. All of these are nature's own images of a northern land.